Hey, what's up guys? This is Andrew Mil-Spec with Combat Training. Today's video we're going to be talking about trigger control. This is something where if you master trigger control, you will always make an accurate shot. Having a proper grip and your stance and the way you're positioning your body behind the gun, that all adds up for faster follow-up shots, but you still need good trigger control for that. However, honestly, you can hold the gun like this and make totally accurate shots with proper trigger control. But to do that, you have to understand the way the trigger works and where to place your finger on the trigger. So let's talk about where do you place your finger on the trigger first. If you have a 1911 or any gun with like a straight trigger where as you pull the trigger, the whole thing comes straight back, you should be putting the pad of your fingertip, the first pad of your fingertip, on the trigger, okay? If you have a Glock or a rolling type trigger where you press the trigger and it's on a fulcrum, right? It's rolling back. That's when you want to put the trigger right there in the center of your knuckle, if you can. Now, watch my video on how to do the thumb forward grip. That's really important too. But you will find your best trigger press when you are shooting one-handed, because you're not allowed to cheat your trigger press by having two hands out there. So this is kind of like the place where I'll say, find what works best for you. And I hate that phrase because generally people take that phrase and they're like, well, I'll just carry a little mini pocket rocket because I'm lazy. It's also going to be a shitty cheap one because I like Applebee's more than defending my family. So don't use find what works best for you as an excuse to be lazy. In this context, we're finding what works best for you because we all have different size hands with different size guns with different types of triggers. So this is where you need to figure out how to make that straight press. You imagine it's kind of like you're holding a 2-pound gun out in front of you with a 5-pound trigger press or whatever the case is for you. And as you press the trigger, it moves the whole gun in one direction or the other. Generally, right-handed shooters will push the gun left when they press the trigger and they jerk it. Left-handed shooters will press the gun to the right when they jerk the trigger. So what I have found is that for curved triggers, you want to place the center of the trigger right there in that knuckle as much as possible. Now, if you have to use a really garbage grip where your hand's coming all the way over here to do that, don't do that, okay? Just have a stronger grip when you're pressing the trigger and it'll allow you to cheat your trigger press. But if you need to make a micro adjustment to your grip, like say instead of my hand being right here, I bring it like that and it's just a little bit off where it's not the front sight isn't as straight, front sight, rear sight, wrist, elbow isn't that straight when I press out, but I'm trying to make a super accurate shot, then yeah, it's okay. Make a little micro adjustment on your grip to make that accurate shot. But now, so that's where we're placing the trigger on our finger. Now, where does our finger go on the trigger, as in how high and low? What I have found that works best for me is I again am putting the center of the trigger right on that knuckle, and then I'm putting my fingertip against the bottom of the trigger guard. Now I may even rotate my hand a little bit to bring this side of my finger lower to the trigger guard as well, okay? Because again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to press the trigger straight and smoothly to the rear. Now, let's talk about the way the trigger works. So that's how you put your finger on the trigger. Let's talk about how do we work the trigger. We have different kind of stages within the trigger. Now, this is a Glock pistol. You'll find it the same way on a lot of different guns, but the distances between the stages will probably be different. But when we extend out, that's when we want to put our finger on the trigger. You can fire from retention too, but if you're just target practicing, you're learning, I would say you put your finger on the trigger after you're extended out, okay? Especially if you're new. Once we're extended out, that's when we put our finger on the trigger. Now you see how the trigger's out all the way. Put our finger on the trigger, we're going to begin our press and we're going to take it to the wall, okay? So it's extended out all the way, we begin our press and it takes it to the wall. The wall would be that area where the trigger press begins to get a little bit harder, okay? That's where we begin our actual trigger press to fire our shot, okay? So again, the trigger's all the way out. We're going to put our finger on the trigger and press to the rear. That would be called taking the slack out of the trigger. Now we're at the wall. That's when we find our proper sight alignment, sight picture, and when we're ready to break our shot, we'll press the trigger straight and smooth to the rear and it will fire. Right now it's going to be a click instead of a bang because the gun's unloaded. All right, at that point our finger is going to stay pinned at the rear. The gun will cycle and we need to reset the trigger immediately. You hear that click, you'll hear and feel the click. That's trigger reset. So let's look at that again, okay? I put my finger on the trigger, take out the slack at the wall, find my sight picture, sight alignment, press it straight and smooth to the rear, bang, gun will cycle, then we reset our trigger, and then we go back to the wall and we are applying steady pressure to the rear for faster follow-up shots. I'm going to demonstrate this with the airsoft pistol because it's actually going to cycle and you can see what it looks like. Okay, so again, finger on the trigger, okay, take out the slack to the wall, and then I'm going to begin my press once I have sight picture, sight alignment. Reset, pressure to the wall, reset, pressure to the wall, sight picture, sight alignment, reset, pressure to the wall, sight picture, sight alignment, reset, and then I'm done shooting. I still have pressure, that's that follow through. Let the slack out, finger straight off the trigger, and we're done. Okay guys, so that's how to use trigger reset where you're pinning the trigger to the rear. If you're trying to shoot accurately, that's the way I want you to do it. And if you're trying to shoot faster, think about it like this. Again, you want to reset the trigger immediately after every shot. That's going to make you shooting faster. There's another technique where we lose contact with the trigger. That's more of something that's like done at 15 yards and in. If you're trying to shoot accurately beyond that, that's where you really want to have the trigger reset mastered and you want to be pinning it to the rear. But that's what's going to get you shooting more accurately, using that trigger reset. It's going to shorten your trigger press and you're gonna be working from here to here instead of from here to here. And then I also see a lot of people coming off the trigger, taking the finger off, then putting it back on, which destroys the whole thing and makes you a garbage shooter. So, all right guys, thanks for watching. Check out the website, combatartraining.com, buy my rifle sling, sign up for private training, sign up for one of the group classes. Remember that training saves lives and keep fighting communism.